stories will thrive. Welcome to another video by the Blue Tongues of Hell for some more Hildar Chronicles. This third chapter is called Shields of Snow. An eldritch mist slithered away over the silver-plate waters of Elivargar River. Locks of foggy volutes crept over the opposite riverbank and were shredded to ghostly forms through the brown fangs of Nebelwood Forest. A young Norse woman stood beside a small pebbled inlet, gazing blankly with egg-white eyes into the nebulous distance. She shuddered and clutched her neck as if an arrow had just plunged through the jugular, causing her misty eyes to revolve downwards and reveal a set of two bright peppermint irises. On the woman's forearm, a pine-green snake hissed and gracefully uncoiled its grip, lackadaisically slipping into the sleepy river flow. A sound of rustled dead leaves led the creature to skittishly swim away, out of sight.
What are you doing here alone, Hilda? At the crack of dawn, no less.
Without swishing round her dark chestnut hair, neatly cut at shoulder blade length, Hilda replied, "Fadir, I expect you would prefer me indoors, knitting with Eleonora all through the winter. But don't worry, I know how to defend myself." Hilda uncorked a pouch hanging from her waist belt and took a quick gulp.
Perhaps you do, Dottir. But your viper tongue will only get you so far against the organ snatcher.
Is that what they're calling him now? Huffed Hilda. I don't know what the fuss is all about. Why haven't you captured him yet?
The war, Hilda? Dead peasants with missing organs isn't exactly at the top of my priority list.
See, you agree, said Hilda, giving Agni a big smile. The king was used to Hilda's games. She could go on for days like this, just to have the last word.
I only want you to be safe, Hilda,
said King Agni, discreetly observing the fields on the other side of the river.
And keep out of mischief.
And what sort of mischief are you up to this morning, Fadir? Asked Hilda, brushing sand and brittle fern leaves off her long, double-breasted black dress. The king pressed his lips together and blinked as a faint breeze irritated his eyelashes. For a moment, he gave his daughter a look of grave concern. He knew of her intimate friendship with the boy from the despicable realm of Helheim, and had forbidden her to see him ever again. It was unfit of the heir to the throne, second in line and it was also strategically suicidal to pursue such a scandalous relationship, unless she had useful intelligence to pilfer and not give away to the enemy. Ogni rubbed his face downwards from his worried forehead to a pointy grey beard tied up in a wooden clip. He forced himself to smile when his troublesome daughter looked up at him endearingly. He nodded over his shoulder to take the route back home. From across the river, a patient doe, hidden in dying ferns, had been watching them the whole time. As Ogni and Hilda were about to leave, it darted off with an intentional outburst of energy and noise, back-kicking dirt and stones into the water through the stems of dead bulrushes and wilting yellow flags. Ogni pretended not to notice.
Come on then, my Valkyrie. Let us walk together and predict who you will find worthy of Valhalla when we strike Helheim tonight.
He helped her up the riverbank, which Hilda found suspicious. She couldn't think of the last time he had given her a hug or shown any warm affection. Hilda decided to test her father's sincerity and nudged his ribs playfully with an elbow. He didn't reject her, and they locked arms.
This war has taken its toll on your poor father. I know I shouldn't admit this, but it is draining me out. I secretly wish it would end tomorrow, should Odin grant me the strength.
Hilda noticed how old the king looked and felt a tremor of shame. Fear not, Vadir. You always outdo yourself on the battlefield, Hilda said, suddenly flushing red. At least that's what I've heard your people say when recounting your legendary feats. Hilda strengthened her grip around her father's arm and stared at the gloomy forest. Vadir, I've watched you die so many times. I don't know if I can do this any longer.
Do what any longer?
Hilda felt another rush of panic spread throughout her body, moistening her palms in sweat. She couldn't believe she had spoken her thoughts out loud. This walk to the woods, Vadir. A horse would be more adequate, don't you think?
Speaking of the cavalry, are we ready?
All set to go, my lord. I am told the horses are much better, pumped up for battle.
Strange how they always get so frantic before an onslaught. It's as if they can sense what is about to happen on the bloody plains.
Animals are blessed with instinctive foresight, Vadir, replied Hilda patronizingly. Some feel the shivers of Loki days before an earthquake. Remember when our Vedirhundur began to howl abnormally?
How could I forget?
Said King Ogni mournfully, remembering his first wife Skeggold, who was burnt alive when lightning struck the kennels one summer night. He let go of Hilda's arm to pack his pipe. The hounds somehow foresaw the danger to come, and Modier paid the price for caring too much for those vile hunting dogs. I hope they're being skinned alive in hell, over and over for eternity.
I hope the horses haven't predicted our defeat,
said Ogni wistfully. Oh, it must have been the full moon, or another rat infestation in the stables. Nothing to concern yourself with. Your men and horses are at your command.
In that case, I command them to bring me Moon Castle and Golden Ares treasures tonight. Odin, may we all return victorious and in one piece to celebrate.
No dining at Odin's stable tomorrow. You'll be cracking open hundreds of mead hogsheads with the death hammer, and soon the fiery belt will be yours. I don't see the future unfolding any other way, Vadir.
May the gods hear your prayers.
The low sun was now fingering its way through the pale boughs of Nebelwood's outskirts. There was a pungent scent of forest litter that morning, especially after the agitated doe's hooves had disrupted the decaying leaves. On the lower branches of a great coniferous tree, a few red squirrels were in a ferocious squabble over a nibbled pine cone when a deer passed by, out of breath. They dropped their unfinished breakfast and scattered off in opposite directions. In the intoxicating calm of the dead quiet forest, the doe collapsed to its knees. In the playful sunlight, one could imagine the deer was shedding a tear as Ray caught one of its pebble-black watery eyes. With the celerity of a carnivorous plant snapping a fly in its needle teeth, the doe's brown hide receded. The smooth fur turned to soft, pale skin, and long blonde hair began to grow from the doe's now humanoid head. On the humid forest floor now knelt a young woman. Her curved, naked back had the sheen of a smooth white rock by the shore, polished by pestering caresses of ocean waves. A voice from the tree branches above interrupted the silence. Why such woe, dear Skuld? The blonde woman stood up and pretended to pull a strand of hair away from her eyes. What do you care? She replied telepathically, looking for the place she had buried some clothes made of hemp and nettles, lime bast and entwined feathers. I care for the Huldra more than you could ever know, even for those who find themselves attracted to the flames like silly butterflies. Oh, crawl back to the caves and find someone else to torment Kara, retorted Skuld, digging up her ragged garments. That's exactly what I'll be doing. On all fours, snapped Kara, hopping down from a pine tree as an Arctic fox with its partial white pelage. You know we've all heard what you've been up to all these years. We'll get an ear full of this, eavesdroppers. If my trivial life is so unbefitting, then why do you keep humiliating our kind by accepting to be the slaves of some girl with ponytails? Skuld stamped her foot next to the fox, which sent her instinctively scampering off. Feeling foolish for being forced to react like a common animal, Kara cowered away in the shadows. You think the Drogar tolerate such abuse of the mist? We will no longer tolerate anyone sleeping with the enemy either. They aren't the real enemy. They're just as much puppets as we are, said Skuld aloud, calmly, while licking a trickle of pine sap. Nobody's pulling the Drogar strings. So you may think, Kara. Feel free to suck my veins, by the way. You only know half the truth. As I'm sure you're being kept half in the dark, too. Skuld. Consider this a final warning. Before Skuld could process what the fox was trying to say, Kara burst into a fearsome drog and grabbed Skuld by the neck and arm, sinking her sharp teeth into Skuld's right breast. The expression of horror on Skuld's face made Kara loosen her grip. Skuld pushed her attacker away. What have they done to you, sister? Ashamed, with blood dripping from her lips, Kara disappeared into the dark. Already miserable from missing her traditional tryst with Ogni, Skuld decided something was to be done. Flocks of crows invaded the forest, filling the few gaps of light left in the coniferous canopy. The forest of Nebelwood kept the realms of Helheim and Vanaheim far apart. From her private quarters in Vanaheim's castle, Queen Eleonora could see the tree line on the horizon. She had seen her husband on foot, strolling off for a solitary hunt in the woods before sunrise that morning. She had suspected for some time that flexing bows and picking off game were the last of Ogni's early occupations. As a slender yet powerful hand came to stroke her neck, Eleonora wasted little thought on the king's rumoured indiscretions. Not here, Gunnar. I've told you before, we could be spotted, Eleonora mentioned, as an Arctic breeze pinched her skin through an open window.
Hush now, hush now. His Majesty won't be back until noontide, and no one will be out there at this time of day. Battle is at the bay, lest we forget. Oh, and I had all your servants stuff their ears with butter this morning.
Eleonora pinched and twisted his skin between his ribs. That may well be true, you limber menace. But do as I say. Get dressed and get things moving downstairs. Wars can wait. Breaking the fast will not. At your service, your highness, said Gunnar cheekily, slapping the queen's backside. I mean it, Gunnar. I'm not in the mood, said Eleonora, finding something warm to put on. My stubborn stepchildren and my pathetic husband already give me a hard enough time as it is.
I'm sure you wouldn't want me to go soft on you, my lady,
jested Gunnar, slipping out of the room behind a heavy oak door before Queen Eleanor could reach his head with a hairbrush. See you tonight, he whispered through a crack in the door ajar. Gunnar strutted through the kitchen. He unintentionally squashed a cockroach under his boot, then snarled at the sight of a rat slipping through one of the cook's legs. He pointed out to them how confused he was.
How could two attractive young ladies like yourselves work in such filth?
He filched the pickle and plopped it into his mouth, crunched it between his molars, and enjoyed the gush of bitterness that sprayed his palate.
If you don't pay attention to details like vermin droppings in venison meat or tiny eggs in flower pots, how do you expect to survive walking down the street?
The cooks weren't too sure if they should giggle or frown. Gunnar stuck a wad of cheese into his pocket and fiddled with a dirty rag laying on a chopping board.
It is true, ladies. You'd be easy prey for the snatcher. One afternoon, you'd be chatting away to the lazy farrier about how mean the handsome Gunnar is. And while you bumbled back home, dreaming of a real man to warm your bed, you wouldn't notice the soft footsteps behind you, matching your heartbeat as they got closer. A dog would bark, and you still wouldn't understand what was happening when a shadow grabbed your arm and slapped the palm over your mouth. The next morning, you wouldn't get to work on time. A fisherman would find you bobbing about in the surf without a brain, and he'd say to his seamates, "Poor lass, our loss." She didn't really lose much, by the looks of it.
The cooks went red as radishes and gave Gunnar an earful of colourful compliments that pleasantly associated the man's features with the greasy rodent's posterior, or the insides of a smelly kipper. Gunnar smiled away as he disappeared behind the doorway down to the pantry. There he shifted a heavy stone slab out of the way to reveal a hidden hatch that led below Vanheim's castle. Prepare Freyr. I must leave immediately, ordered Hilda, standing at the entrance of the royal horse barn in the afternoon. She drank from her leather pouch and angrily popped the cork back in.
I you sure, my lady? With the snatcher on the prowl?
Oh, mind your own business, then. Hilda knew she had just committed a faux pas. Stan's wife had been found washed up on the beach before the first red leaves had begun to fall. Her decomposing body was swollen, blue as a bluebird, tangled in bladder-wrack seaweed. Tiny crabs were found in her empty skull, and everyone assumed an orca had taken a bite out of her, or she tumbled off a cliff. Why she would have been at sea, nobody could really say. Stan claimed he didn't know, although he was the primary suspect. Only after a few more bodies with missing organs were found did the Vanaheim population put two and two together and consider the matter more seriously.
My apologies, Princess. However, I'm afraid your horse has just been fed,
replied Stan respectfully.
If possible, I suggest you delay your royal activity until the sun has set a finger or two.
Absolutely not. Perhaps you didn't hear me correctly, groom. I said at once.
As you wish, your highness.
And if you wish to return safely to your children tomorrow morning, I hope I can count on your discretion. The stable master lowered his head with a reluctant nod. Stan was a brawny man. To be taking orders from a frail young lady, half his size, was not what he expected when King Ogni named him royal head groom over a decade ago. He had nothing against hierarchy and was as loyal as an elk hound. But Hilda's vinegary tone and lack of tact would test the patience of a Gothi priest. Nevertheless, Stan picked up a black leather saddle and quietly fulfilled his duty. He didn't hold grudges and didn't wish Hilda bumped into the organ snatcher down a lonely lane. When Hilda's horse was ready, she dug her left boot into a stirrup and swung herself up onto Freyr's back. She gave the stable master a stern look, making sure he understood the importance of keeping his tongue, if of course he wished to keep his own. Stan then stroked the horse's muzzle, and Hilda stormed out of the barn. Hens in the way were miraculously not trampled. The horse didn't require much guidance and seemed to take the right paths before Hilda would pull the reins. Hilda had been down this path so many times that she assumed her horse's sense of direction was out of habit. Besides, she had other matters on her mind than the trivial question of animal obedience. Today's outing was something she would always look forward to and dread at the same time. In either case, she had to get away without being spotted. Instead of passing through the main gate facing Nebelwood, she took the southern gate, where two young sleepy guards were ready to let her fly by for a small pouch of angelic root. They hardly gave her a glance as she galloped away. Freyr slowed down as they approached two tall silver birch trees. Hilda leaned forwards and rubbed the animal's ears, as if rewarding it for knowing the riders so well. The horse didn't care for the loving gesture, since it was currently dealing with painful indigestion, thanks to Hilda's impatience. Showing no discomfort, Freyr neighed lightly and came to a halt. Hilda left her horse by the twin birch gate before wandering off alone into the forest. As she did so, a couple of bluethroats fluttered off into the barley fields, chirruping away as if they had just escaped a wolf attack. For townfolk, this part of the forest was a hodgepodge of random trees. For the huldra of Nebelwood, the beeches, the chestnuts, and elm trees, pines, and oaks were harmoniously scattered around, as well as the crabapples, elderberries, and hawthorns. Hilda did not notice any other species, too busy wiping cobwebs from her face and evading bramble prickles, or worse, tears in her black dress. Feet away from an impending alley of thorns, she unsheathed the long, thin blade and proceeded to hack her way forwards. High above Hilda's head, an oily black creature, the size of a sheared sheep, branded with a bloody red H symbol on its thorax, elegantly clambered through crimson leaves from branch to branch. It didn't let Hilda out of its sight with its two impassive human eyes, surrounded by 6 spider ones. The canopy grew thicker and thicker, and Hilda made slow progress through the musty undergrowth. I'll be needing a torch soon, she thought. Next time, I'll make them come to me. A soft voice sliced the silence. Allow me, Princess Hilda. A small woman with angular features emerged so quickly from the darkness that even before Hilda could think of raising her blade, the woman had already slipped a hand into Hilda's hair, delicately removing a large-bodied spider. Hilda was shocked how easily this forest dweller could have delivered a fatal wound had she decided to do so. There was no need, Voluspa, said Hilda, trying to calm her electrocuted nerves. You know I have no fear of spiders. Perhaps you should, Princess Hilda. Although I admit I was merely thinking of the spider's safety first. Voluspa placed the arachnid on a discolored bramble leaf and turned round to where she had come from. Come, my dear. Did your morning stroll turn out as you expected? Hilda thought she saw roots slither out of Voluspa's way. It made her skin crawl, but she tried to hide her revulsion by striding onwards with dauntless regality. Not entirely, but I did get into deep water. My poor girl, you ought to be more careful. I won't always be here to look after you. Who should I be afraid of now? The Snatcher or my Fadir? Are you going to give me another lecture on how foolish it is for a young woman to be out in the woods all alone? Said Hilda, whacking an ash sapling with her sword. A few large jackdaws croaked aggressively. I very much doubt your loyal subjects mislay their organs in Nebelwood. A wolf howled not too far away. Although perhaps we ought to meet closer to Grunelger next time. Although I agree, it would be far more practical. You know we can't, Hilda replied. Our presence here, however inconvenient it may be, was not to be known by any inhabitant of Venaheim, or elsewhere for that matter. Being in league with the Nebelwood folk was not a topic she wished to discuss any time soon with her father or Hedil. Hedil wouldn't understand either. After a few more 100 yards into the depths of Nebelwood, Voluspa decided she had disorientated her human guest long enough. Holes of light in the dense ceiling of leaves above expanded with the weightless movement of woodland spiders, highlighting the entrance of a cave at the foot of an enormous ash tree. The cave appeared to dive directly into the tree's elephantine roots, similar to great boulders bulging out of the rich leafy soil. I sometimes wonder if you make these inane detours just to annoy me. Voluspa gazed into Hilda's eyes with slight disdain and held out a withered palm. Before we enter, would you mind? Hilda slid a soft hand into an interior pocket of her warm coat and retrieved a stained leather pouch. I suppose that will do, said Voluspa, giving the blood a sniff to check how fresh it was. Follow me. Voluspa dug 3 fingers into the pouch and gave them a lick. Hilda froze. She couldn't move and actually felt a cold mist brush her cheeks. The old woman swiftly dabbed 2 vertical lines on Hilda's forehead and slashed through them with 3 diagonal lines to form a sort of bloody symbol. Hilda grit her teeth. She could see the mist now, creeping up her leg. Voluspa slid her hand over Hilda's chest, and it looked as though she was trying to feel a pulse. The forest came alive. A myriad bird songs erupted and gave Hilda's eardrums a severe stoning. The cave was a pale blur. She was now wrapped in a blanket of mist, and Voluspa's sickly fingers still stroked her ribs. "Follow me," said Voluspa, pretending nothing had happened. The mist was gone, and the cave entrance had that sinister appearance again of patient jaws ready to maul. Hilda shook like a wet dog and rubbed the blood off frantically. "What did you have to do that for?" cried Hilda. "You've never touched me before." "There's always a first time, isn't there, Hilda?" replied Voluspa, throwing the pouch to the ground. Hilda jumped out of her skin when a dark grey-clad child darted out of the shadows to snatch it. No matter how hard you try to scrub some things away, there are always stains that will remain. I shouldn't have to remind you, Huldra, if I go missing or meet some gruesome death. I've left specific orders for my Vadir's army to burn this forest to cinders, Hilda tried to say, without trembling. The child, with half-human, half-beast features, wiped its lips and stared up into Hilda's eyes. "I mean it," she whinged. Voluspa made a faint growling sound, and the Droga kid belted off into the cave's depths. "No need to be afraid, little one. Nothing gruesome will happen to you in these woods. You know you belong here, don't you?" Hilda felt humiliated. "I don't need you to tell me where I belong. Take me home immediately." Voluspa licked her fingers clean. "Perhaps you would like me to grant you another vision. I have one to share if you wish." "Make it quick. I'm in a hurry," replied Hilda with a frown. Voluspa closed her eyes and drew on her own forehead the same 2 vertical lines as those on the spider's thorax. She whispered to Hilda, "Shields of snow appear below. I might reveal someone you know." Hilda usually enjoyed solving riddles, and Voluspa would treat her to a few when they met, but the witch had spoiled everything. Despite the feeling of impending doom she had in her tight chest, Hilda immediately thought of Edil's castle in Helheim. Moon Castle. Their walls are white as snow, but why would they appear below? Unless I am a bird, perhaps, or a Valkyrie. "Go on," said Hilda impatiently. thinking of what else white shields could refer to. Hilda stared into the cave's darkness. Teeth. They appear below the eyes when speaking. So a tongue might reveal someone I know. And that someone has a secret. Don't we all? What waste of time. Voluspa continued. Lions and tigers roar inside your darling's claws. Cry in silence to a heart of soil. Seeds of violence will not breach your walls, said Voluspa, making a symbolic gesture of 3 horizontal lines over her breasts. Seeds of violence, what could that be? The reason for going to war? Or tactics for battle? Does this mean all my strategies will not pay off, and all obstacles won't be demolished? Asked Hilda out loud, while knowing that Voluspa would never give a satisfactory answer. The breaching of walls could also refer to letting one's guard down, allowing someone to love you or hurt you. But why cry in silence to a heart of soil? That makes no sense. Unless she means I will be burying someone I secretly care about. What does she mean by Edil having roaring cats in his claws? Claws must be a reference to weaponry. If a sword cries out, that means it is unsheathed and ready to attack. But a weapon isn't always what one expects it to be. One also roars when overflowing emotions or something important needs to be expressed aloud. That could be the secret, or simply Edil's unconditional love. Is he going to give up his rights to the throne of Helheim and emigrate to Vanaheim, like a starling would? What kind of secret weapon are you withholding from me, sweet starling? Is there something you desperately want to tell me? Voluspa gave Hilda a grim smile. I thought you were in a hurry. Hilda resurfaced from her lake of thoughts and scratched the side of her open mouth. Things hadn't gone according to plan today, but throughout her eventful life, she had grown fully aware that plans never did. They always required fixing with a fresh and fertile mind, with a heart of soil for secret flowers in the dark. So, what is it you really wanted? Do we have to save your father, or will it be your lover this time? You can drain the holder of all their talent for only so long before reaping what you sow. One cannot take forever without having to pay some way or another. Maddening sounds sang throughout the cave, while stretched shadows danced on the walls. Hilda decided this was not the time or place to push her luck and collected her thoughts. She summoned all the courage she could muster and shared in a composed voice her father's plan to attack Helheim during the night. will be done, and the price will be paid, young lady, concluded Voluspa after Hilda had finished with her demands. However, the next time you request such aid from the Order of the Mist, I expect you to get your feet wet. I'm counting on you, Hilda. You know how important you are to me. Now run away home before I am unable to hold back my hungry children any longer. Hilda nodded reluctantly, but still needed Voluspa's guidance to find her way out of the forest. Could you shed some light on the correct path this time? Asked Hilda with less bravado. Voluspa whispered to creatures that Hilda could not see, and punctures of light in the canopy gradually shone a path towards the outskirts of Nebblewood. As she walked away, she tried to clear her mind and forget everything out there in the dark that probably wanted to eat her. She imagined Hedil's cold fingers running up her spine, shields of snow. The sun was about to set, letting thin red needles impale Nebblewood's thick web of leaves. Dark shadows scuttled around in the humid bracken. Many animals of all kinds split their skins and cracked their bones to stand on 2 feet and march towards the bleeding sky over the western mountains, towards the thrones of the gods. See you soon for the next chapter of the Hilda Chronicles.